everybody. It's your girl Fallon, and I am here today with Kristen and a special guest for another episode of You Better Than Me, the podcast. Today we have chilling in the building with us, Lauren Parrish, licensed professional counselor. Now, your girls feel that therapy and all these things are great, and we are all pro mental health. And summertime people be having fun. You don't necessarily think about working on your mentals, but I think that you should. And we done all had a lot going on, and the summer be summering, and like I always say, life be lifing. So yeah, we got some credentialed personnel up in the building with us. Kristen, how are you?
Girl, I'm doing okay. I just got back from a little vacation situation, and I just celebrated my birthday. So I'm still on cloud nine right now.
Yes, summer birthdays.
I know. Let me just tell you how funny people are, though. So I'm celebrating my birthday. So of course, people calling me, you call me, whatever. My auntie called me, and we talking, and her husband in the background talking about when I'm gonna get an invite to the wedding.
Trash.
What wedding?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. I told her, I was like, he'll get an invite when I decide to. But I'm like, you gotta start asking people that question. Like, it's so insensitive, especially for those people who are really consumed with the idea or the act of really wanting to be married. Like that could take somebody down a whole different road.
Bunch of
Exactly. I was just like, what about
I feel like that's been a recurring thing with people wanting to put you in a lane that you might not necessarily be in, but they feel you should be in. And I don't like that. I don't know.
You know what I said too? I told her because I said something smart, but I also said, when have I ever told you that I wanted to be married? Because I think that's what people forget. Like everybody does not want to be married and everybody does not want to have children. And that is a right that people have. And I'm not saying I don't, but I never had a conversation with him to be like, "Oh, I can't wait for my man to come so I can be married." I never said that.
And even for a man to say that, I don't know. That just make it even feel like worse. Like, get in your lane, sir. Like, who are you? Like
right, a man that I don't even call uncle. Let me stop, Keith.
Again, like I said, I don't know. I'm used to family dynamicing, but so this basically this nigga that's married to your auntie, we ain't gonna call him your uncle, but somebody who is married to your aunt basically went away from the happy birthday narrative. That's all the call should have been like, hey, you on vacation?
I don't even think he told me happy birthday. If I'm being honest.
Not at all.
He told me happy birthday. I think what I heard him say was, ask two when I'm gonna get an invite to the wedding. I'm like, oh wow.
So I'm not sure why that was the first thought on his
segue.
Yeah, I don't know how that was a segue, but I feel like that topic, especially for us women who are lifing in our 40s and maybe 30s, we talked about like the aunties versus the mothers in a previous episode, and I thought that was a really interesting topic because like I said, when I was in my auntie era, I felt like I was the most important person in the world. And Kristen put on her psychology degree robe and took me down a couple notches because she was like, nah, the auntie is this, and this, blah, blah, blah. And I kind of want to circle back to that because just that statement that your auntie husband said and just different stuff that I've been dealing with in my personal life too has kind of made me feel like maybe others are running into this. And it's hard. Like we are one of those seasons where people are getting married. Some of our friends are having children, and then you have the people who are in the season that they're supposed to be in and happy in it. No shade or nothing if that is not the lane you're in right now. But everybody else, if you're happy in whatever lane you're in, then why do people come in telling you how you should be doing or trying to throw that monkey wrench in there? Like, why they gotta be asking about a wedding when you out here celebrating your birthday?
Right. It's just society standards. What you think, Lauren? Because I don't know why somebody would say that. No?
I'm definitely into we prescribe to a lot of societal norms and we don't even recognize it because I would say, and Fallon, you tell me if you've had this since you've become a newlywed and people are immediately like, when are y'all having kids?
Oh God, yes.
Like immediately, like, can I,
Mhm.
pick out the towels that I want? Can we decide on how we gonna load the dishwasher? And why is it like this
Your
has to be
business.
the next to-do list item that we have to have kids right now? And I even asked my husband, I was like, are people all up in your ball sack the way they get my uterus about when we having kids?
Yes. And now, you know what? I feel like I've been guilty of doing that because, like you said, it's kind of like programming. So
Mm-hmm.
when people get married, or I'm always like, okay, when y'all gonna have a baby? But then being on the receiving end, especially knowing that I had my own little fibroid issues and all this,
Mm-hmm.
and reconstructive cats and all that, surgerized, and though all those things that could have potentially, maybe potentially lessen my chances of being able to have a child. Like people don't know that unless you just know me
Mm-hmm.
or listen to the podcast and know about the body talk. Like you wouldn't know that I had fibroids at some point in time. So maybe that is a sensitive topic for me, just like a lot of other people. And it wasn't until I dealt with that I kind of leaned back off of even asking that question. But yes, to answer your question, long story short, everybody been up in this womb. Everybody.
Exactly. And I think it's just like I have to remind even myself and other people, like, these milestones, like, let's stop them after we turn our tassel in high school, right?
Yeah.
Because that's probably, like, for a lot of us, the last time that you really didn't have the life. Now, that's not to negate any listener who's out there and they were like, no, I've been working since I was 12. That wasn't for you. But I'm
Yeah.
talking about, like, you just had that carefree, you going to the pep rally, you going to the game, you just got to pass. What were y'all taking? The test, the tap, whatever.
Yeah.
And that was
Yeah.
it, right? And so life was designed for you to start kindergarten and graduate high school.
Yep.
Nothing else is really that mainstream, check these boxes and end up with that outcome post high school. But we don't talk about those things. We don't talk about the college student who gets the scholarship, but it's not enough to cover their entire cost of attendance. We don't talk about the student who graduates high school and is automatically expected to get a job and start paying bills and then trying to figure their life out, right? So nothing else after 18, I feel like, is on such a linear track, and we treat it as like, well, why aren't you married? Well, why don't you have kids? Why haven't you bought a house? Like, it's just so easy.
And that's the thing. People think that it's just so easy. And that's why I found it very disheartening, because of the fact that I don't discuss my relationships or whatever really with too many people. So you wouldn't know if I just got out of a relationship or if I was just done wrong and I was crying right before you called me to tell me happy birthday. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like people just don't know what's going on with people, because you don't have to tell everyone your business. And while that wasn't my case, people still may not know, or people may not, they just won't know. What if I have a negative relationship with marriage in general? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Or what if I'm just like, oh, I just like to live carefree and I don't mind having a partnership, but not something on paper. So I think
What
that's
if you just happy where you at? What if you just chilling in your season? Like just because you aren't on a Pinterest board every second doesn't mean that you are not on track with what you're supposed to be doing in your life. Like, why you couldn't have just celebrated your birthday? Like, why are we automatically throwing age caps on there? Like, oh, well, you're turning a year older. That's implying extra stuff that shouldn't have even been a part of the conversation. It should have just been happy birthday. Like, enjoy your moment. Like, celebrate where you at right now in this season. And we not even worried about no babies or no husbands or no men at this moment. Like, that was not the time. And it's, I don't know. To me, it feels like they negating stuff. Like when people do that to me, that whole what's next, like it has kind of brainwashed me into not really taking the time to celebrate the seasons or where I'm at.
Absolutely.
Because I'm like, okay, well, damn, if this still wasn't enough, then what am I supposed to do now? What's next? Like it's like you're always chasing after something.
Like, absolutely. And I feel like you don't even recognize that you're in that chase. And I talk about this a lot with my clients, which is, you have to stop and celebrate the successes. You have to stop and celebrate the wins. Otherwise, you'll just keep going. That dissatisfaction is prevalent and you don't even realize it, because we've also normalized grind culture, right?
Yes.
What's next? What's the, I got to take this trip. I got to buy this car. And not of necessarily keeping up with the Joneses type situation, because I think now, especially with social media, it's like we're all the Joneses.
Yeah.
So there's, so we're all trying to maintain this status quo. And then I invite people to really stop and say, but is this really what you want? Or is this what you think you're supposed to be doing?
Ugh.
Yeah.
Ugh. I think that kind of took my breath away.
But you know what? I think that's such a good way.
I didn't mean to snatch out edges so early. My bad.
That's a great way of saying it, because again, for some people, I went to school with people that just knew before 30 they had this box to check that said, I'm gonna be married before this time, I need to have a baby. And there are some people that don't do life like that. I'm one of those people, because I feel like every good thing that I'm supposed to have will come to me exactly when I'm supposed to have it. And I think about people that I just thought for a fact was going to be my man, and I thought I was going to have this relationship with. And I can't even imagine those same people being in a marriage with at all.
Oh, yeah. Like, I like when people post that, like, could you imagine if you were married to your high school sweetheart, or that person that you had a crush on and you thought was like that person? I was like, oh, Lord. Or like, could you imagine, what if you were married to the person that you were with when you were 16?
Right.
I would have like a gold bottom grill and probably a face tat with like a football on it or something ignorant if I reverted back to 16-year-old football bopper aspirations, Fallon. And no, I absolutely could not imagine myself with Nan. You don't know Nan.
You don't know Nan.
Than the one I'm with right now. And that I kind of like have to go back and check myself, because I was one of them people that had boxes. Like the carefree that you talk about, Kristen, I was the complete opposite. Like you could even look at my little senior book from high school. I had all these goals. Like I've always been a manifester even before I knew what it was. So I had written down I would live in whatever city my husband played football in, and I would do this. I'll write books when I feel like it. Like my husband.
Alan, you had a whole MASH game going on.
I genuinely did. And like coming to college, that what my career was like, okay, well, what a ball is it? That was kind of like in the back of my head, and I realized,
what a ball is it?
That's not realistic. And then I had to pivot. And then it was like, all right, well, law school. Now what? Okay, well, I'm gonna be a lawyer. Then 5 years from now, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. By the time I'm 26, I'm gonna be married. Like I always was one of those people that had a checkbox or was always on to the next, what's next. And that made me very OCD-ish, like obsessing with like time schedules and trying to puppet master stuff to work when I wanted it to. And Lauren, we are friends in real life, so you didn't see the other side of this. Like you can attest to how just obsessive I used to be with like wanting to be where I thought I should be. That was like super big to me. And I feel like it wasn't until I relinquished that control that stuff started falling in place. So I had to adopt your mentality later in life, Kristen. Thank the Lord I adopted it. But it's other people like me more than a lot. And I feel like those A-type personalities, I don't proclaim to have an A-type personality, but a lot of my colleagues or people that went to school with me or like highly achieving Black women, I feel like that little phenomenon with feeling like you're supposed to be somewhere where you may see something on TV or your granny put in your ear, like they're negating where you are with like societal expectations, if that makes sense. I don't know. I feel like I was wondering, but I think you get it right.
I think too, it also goes into, especially as high achieving Black women, I think we've all heard that adage of you have to be twice as good to get half as much, right? And so then I think I would say for me, it was easier for me to pivot my attention into my career aspirations, especially where things weren't going for me when I wasn't. I think it's weird now, like I'm almost 40, but I think when I was like I don't know, high school and those lofty dreams of like, oh, I'm going to be married at this age and have kids by this age and have a house by this age. And I'm like, girl, the way these ages are set up, no. But I wasn't, my dating life wasn't as robust. So then I did pivot my attention to career in school and volunteerism and all those other things to not necessarily fill the void, but to feel like I had this sense of accomplishment, that I was still doing the things while waiting on my Eric Jerome Dickey, the Good Book series that had ended to happen for me, right?
Right.
Oof. Child. I
I
feel
feel
like
like it could be so much stress to be that way,
yes.
because I think about people that were like at my school, presidential scholars that were supposed to, smartest of the smartest in school. They were
Ooh,
supposed to go
girl.
on and have these amazing careers. And some of them, not all, but some of them are doing nothing, or some of them are working quote unquote basic jobs, you know what I'm saying, that had nothing to do with this, prestigious scholarship that you had. And I feel like, was it the pressure to live up to this standard, whether you place it upon yourself or your family place it upon you? And right now in this position, are you living the life that you're truly supposed to have? You know what I mean? Because after you excel so much and you check off these lists, like what's next? Because at some
Girl.
point you're gonna plateau, right?
I
Yes.
think one thing to answer your question is we talk about a lot what it means to succeed, but a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people don't talk about what it means to fail.
Ooh.
Mm.
So then when you don't know failure and you don't know how to process that, how to lean into it, right? So because you're gonna fall. Like when I was at a high school, I would tell my kids all the time, you are going to hit that wall. It's gonna happen. It's just more so what are you gonna do after you hit that wall? But so many of us, when we talk about aspirations, when we talk about the goals, we don't talk about the, well, what if all this work doesn't yield the outcome that I'm seeking? Then what?
Ooh. Ooh, Lauren, you are opening up Pandora's box. But before
Yes.
we even get too deep into it, let's take a pause, pay the church's money, and we're gonna get back into it. I wanna get this little pause, and when we come back, we're gonna let you explain a little bit about what you do, and we're gonna get into this failure and recognizing what it is conversation a little bit more.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you ready to take your streaming broadcast, website, or social media visuals up a notch? Pyro Media Productions is here with the perfect solution. From dynamics, design, and professional headshot shoots to family photo ops, they've got all you need for stunning content creation. Check out pyromediaproductions.com today and add that creative flair. Pyro Media Productions, setting brands ablaze since 2017.
So, Lauren, before we took our commercial break to pay the church's money,
Amen.
you was dropping bars.
Or
You said so many things, and I'm over here trying to like just write down all these points because you basically psychoanalyzing my life right now, and it's just a lot that you said that I want to run it back. So, are you living the life you're truly supposed to have? Was the question that Kristen kind of posed. I believe it was you, Kristen, right?
mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
then someone just came in there, just blah 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 blah, just karate chopping. So,
And that was as a result of possibly failing and not meeting the expectation that either you or your family or society had on you.
Mm-hmm.
so tell me what just failure. We gonna give you a cipher moment. Just spit bars, rhyme, do what you do, but speak on failure.
I think about, okay, so I like to use a lot of pop culture analyses and celebrity analyses. And so one thing that's a big debate is about the GOAT, right? And we're talking
Mm.
NBA, so we're talking LeBron, we're talking Michael, we're talking Kobe and all these things, right? And respectively so, whatever your arena is, there's a GOAT, right? There's some attorney that you look to, Fallon. There's some educator out there who is like, the Ron Clark Academy just really does it for me, right? And so those things are great, but like when you think about it, Michael Jordan is a phenomenal basketball player, but however many seasons that he played, he wasn't going to the championships every year. He wasn't bringing home a ring every year to Chicago. The man sucked in baseball, right? Does that lessen who he is as far as what he did to his arena because he experienced some failures? No. People will argue until the cows come home that he's the GOAT. Yet for us as lay people, if we make a mistake, a misstep, or have a failure, we don't extend ourselves that same grace. Why? Right? Because invariably failure is going to happen, right? It's not going to be the outcome that you want it to be. And instead of just crumbling, why are we leaning into that and being like, okay, let's go back to the lab. What can I do differently? What resources do I have to change this outcome, instead of just automatically adopting like, I suck, I failed, I did this, and begin to just view things in a deficit lens instead of as a learning opportunity.
We're gonna be edgeless by the time.
I'm sorry. I bought some Hicks to keep you secure, girl.
I'm just saying. So while Lauren is on here snatching our edges, let's take a brief pause so that she can better explain to the people who she is, why we got her on here talking, where she get all this know-how and what exactly she's doing and how she's helping not only Black women, but just people in general deal with some of the things we've been talking about. Lauren, floor, rolling out carpet for you.
Well, thank you. I'm Lauren, and with a lot of alphabet soup after my name. So I have my PhD in educational leadership, but I'm also a licensed professional counselor. And so recently, within the last 6 months, I did a career pivot and I left the education sector. So I refer to myself as a recovering educator. And now I am a full-time therapist. And so my love language and my special population that I really want to make sure that I'm serving is our BIPOC community. Also, allyship is very big to me. So a lot of work that I'm doing in the LGBT plus community, and as well as I'm still a recovering educator, but the young people are still tugging at my heartstrings. So a lot of what my practice addresses is anxiety, stress management, depression, vocational stress, racial trauma, generational trauma. Those are a lot of the reoccurring things that happen. And so with a lot of the clientele that I'm serving now, a big thing is failure. And I'm like, well, are you a failure or did you fail at a task? Because those things are not synonymous. And I think because, when you think about how we are as peers, we know when technology was limited, right? We all remember when television went off and the American flag came on, and then that was it. It wasn't no infomercials, nothing. You had to go to bed. And so now we're being inundated with images and people all the time, right? And I like to remind people, I'm not an influencer, right? But if I'm posting a picture of me, I want to look cute. And so I think about if I'm taking a selfie and then I'm like, oh, it's something in the background. Oh, one of my eyes look lazy. Oh, my hair was sticking up in the back. Nobody told me. And so I'm going to post the picture that looks the best, right? So you're seeing the perfect me that I'm presenting. You're not seeing me when I get up in the morning and half of my bonnet has come off and the eye crust in the corner of my eye and all that other stuff. You're not seeing that. You're seeing my finished product. And so when you think about influencers or celebrities, we're seeing the finished product all the time. Very rare are you really seeing the real behind the scenes, but now we are putting our measure of success to a finished, edited, polished product.
A filter.
Yes.
Exactly.
you speaking it now. You talking that real life now. You all up in that. And it's not just a young people thing. I feel like
no,
well,
absolutely
people
not.
think it's a young people thing. We are 39, 40, 41, 42 knocking on the back doors. And that idea of perfection is still very prevalent in our everyday, especially as Black women. I feel like we probably are more hard pressed to be perfect than anybody. And I don't know. We like the Black Christians. What's your go to for blaming everything on
Slavery. Yes.
I mean,
right? But I don't even know if that's the cause of it.
Well, I think we're still right. We're fighting through stereotypes and misconceptions. We don't want to be angry. We don't want to be lazy. We don't want to be ghetto. We don't want to be hypersexualized, right? So you are armed with this language of people's perception of Black women. And I always say people's perception is their reality, right? So if that's already your reality, are you getting to know me, Lauren, in my softness, in my vulnerabilities, in my moments of self-doubt, in my moments of reflection, in my moments of loving, in my moments of sadness? No, you have carved out what you think you know about me as a brown-skinned Black woman in the South with locks, wearing door knockers, wearing a Fenty red lip because I can, right? So you already have this perception of me, and sometimes it's exhaustive because you're aware of that knowledge and you're trying to pivot. You're trying to be like, I am approachable. I'm not intimidating. I'm not loud. I'm not all of these negative stereotypes that you have about me. And so it's like we're persistently working against dispelling the trope that exists about Black women.
Right.
Yeah. Oof.
And then as you're dispelling it, then you can't even walk into who you're supposed to be, because what if you really are supposed to be, some of those things, not all of them, but you can't be because of, societal standards basically, or what the Black woman is supposed to be. You get what I'm saying?
The white patriarchy. We can say it. The white patriarchy. Absolutely.
That's why I'm always like, it's a result of slavery, just because we've never had a fair chance. And I know we're going all around the world and but it'll come together. But it's like we've never had just a level playing field to just be. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So why do you think that is so, I guess, pressing? Is it that we're fighting against the patriarchy, or are we fighting against each other? We fighting against ourselves to have
all of the above,
the perfect, like the perfection. Like I'm over here like, okay, we talked about imposter syndrome. Am I being the perfect wife? Am I being the perfect whatever? Am I being the perfect this? Like, how can we just be perfectly happy where we're at? Like, what advice would you give someone who is just wanting to be in their season, in their moment, with no comparisons, and able to just say, damn, I am doing a good job, or this is where I'm supposed to be? Like, how does the therapist recommend us to silence all that noise and be happy with ourselves?
Well, some of it I borrowed from you, the poet, writing. I'm very big on bibliotherapy and journaling, because I'm like, don't run away from that, but let's lean into it. And then my question is, why? Why do you feel the need to be perfect? Who created this perception that you had to be the perfect wife, the perfect friend, the perfect attorney, the perfect godmother? Like, where did we create this mold for ourselves? I remember having a conversation with my mom and also having a conversation with my grandmother. So this is when I first graduated from UNO, and I could not find a job. And this is when people were still nice and they would send you rejection letters in the mail. And I was just like, what the hell? Because, I graduated and I had my psychology degree, and I thought I was supposed to immediately get my little entry level job with my cubicle, eating my cheese sandwiches. And it didn't happen immediately. And I automatically deemed that as a failure. And my grandmother said, well, I don't know why you did what I wanted you to do. You went down there and got that piece of paper. What's the problem? And I didn't even think about it like that, because I immediately thought about what's next, instead of relishing in the fact that I got this diploma, graduated in the midst of a natural disaster. Like I wasn't even thinking about that. I immediately pivoted to what's next. So sometimes just asking yourself, how did you even formulate this idea begins to peel back those layers. Next thing is, where's your affirmation practice? Right? I have found it that people are very quick to critique and slow to celebrate.
Let me make a note of that.
I'm going to write that down too, because that's real.
Give me your top 5 things of which you would change. Oh, I want to lose weight. Oh, I want to save up money. Oh, I want to do this. Okay, tell me 3 things that you love about yourself.
I'm about to ask somebody that today. I'm about to ask somebody.
Quiet.
We were in our bed.
Very quiet. And so how you talk to yourself and that internal dialogue you have with yourself manifests itself on the outside. So you have to affirm yourself. You have to practice loving yourself. Like right now, am I the happiest with my body type? No, I feel like Winnie the Pooh and Grimace have merged together and created your girl. And I have to be like, that's where we are today, and you're good. So I literally stand in the mirror and I look at myself and I love on myself and I touch those places on my body that bring me discomfort and love on them and be like, you got this, girl. Because I have to affirm myself before I can depend on other people's to affirm me, because then I won't believe what they're saying. Which brings me to the last piece of, who are you surrounding yourself with? Are you surrounding yourself with people who are draining your energy, or are you surrounding yourself with people who are replenishing you?
Oh, yeah. Lord.
That makes a difference, right? Who are you? What we talk about all the time of healthy life. Drink water, eat fruit, eat your vegetables, get some lentils. We talk about all that stuff of putting into your body. Oh, I only do organic. I only do green smoothies. I'm vegan. That's great. What about your friends? What about your family? How are those people pouring into your body? Because that can also be a form of toxicity, just like McDonald's French fries.
Right. So you said something that kind of, I don't want to just deviate off the topic, but you said something that brought up something for me. So friendships and draining and being around people who are pouring into you. How do we navigate, I guess, friendships now when people are in different seasons? Say I'm still in my ain't married season, my newlywed season, but other people are, let's say, in a motherhood journey. I may or may not be able to resonate or might not even want to know some of the intricacies of it. And that's caused conflict where I've been accused of like not necessarily being open or not being emotionally available for somebody. But it was on something that I didn't even realize that I was not being sensitive or something. It was kind of like, okay, well, this is freaking me out. I don't want to talk about this. This is scaring me. So I shut the conversation down. But I find out that caused even more confusion because that person was all, well, you cut me and hurt me, and you're not. I don't want you in my motherhood journey no more, because that statement or that lack of concern for me and my situation just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. So how would we even navigate just the friends and the seasons and their interactions when people are going through different stages in their life?
I think first just ask. I think sometimes we think we immediately have to take on these new roles or treat people differently because they're in a different season, and now you're leading with an assumption that might not even be correct. So how can I show up for you? How can I, case in point, Fallon, you've lost your dad. I don't know what that loss is. My parents are still living. That doesn't diminish my ability to be there for you in the way that you would have me.
Right.
So same thing when your friends become mothers. Okay, I'm not a mother. Strong auntie game, strong, but I'm not a mom. That doesn't mean that I'm not first concerned about you as the mom, because sometimes I've noticed that we're always about the baby. Well, what about the mama? What about the daddy? So like, are y'all good? Are y'all getting rest? Can I send over Mary Mays? Can I DoorDash y'all something? So I think it's just more so what is it that person is needing, but also too what you have the capacity for.
Mm.
And if those things aren't the same at the exact same time, that doesn't make you a bad friend. I think there's an opportunity for us to communicate what the needs are in all of the seasons as we change, instead of still thinking that I can treat you like the same friend when we were wearing skirts.
Mm.
Fashion evolves, friendships evolve, right? But the flip to that is if you've addressed that and someone isn't giving you what you need, cut it.
Yeah.
Right? I'm very big on permission doesn't give you permission. Position doesn't give you permission. And what I mean by that is your position in my life does not give you permission to mistreat me.
Mm. Ooh.
So whether we're talking about friends, family members, whatever, your position in my life does not give you permission to mistreat
me. Ooh. Wow. Mm. I just bite my tongue on that one for a second. Krista, go fill in the silence because I'm over here just
rocking.
Literally rocking and humming.
Because I'm happy that you said that though, Lauren, because I know just the situation that Fallon is speaking about, it was just like, it's almost like to me when it was told to me like, oh, well, I'm more important than you, so you need to just chill out with what I'm saying. I don't know. It just felt wrong, you know? But that is that's a very good statement about the permission, because as adults, we're allowed to have boundaries for ourselves, for our coworkers, as well as our friendships.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing. A boundary was crossed because you can't tell me that I'm this way, or you can't tell me that I can be a part of your life in this way, but not in this. You get what I'm saying? Like you can, but at the same time, I also have a boundary that says you can't talk to me. You can't treat me like any way that you want to treat me.
Mm-hmm.
So.
That's just my and it's hard. I know it's like very much so easier said than done, especially if this is a person that's been in your life, you know, for a long time. Y'all been rocking and rolling for a long time, but life is short.
Yeah.
And I don't want to expend my energy on someone who isn't giving me reciprocity. Come on, Miss Educational Lauren Hill. I need some reciprocity, right? Recognizing that things are changing, but we've been through that. I've been the friend who was single when everybody else was coupled. I've been the friend when I was married and people were not married. I've been the auntie and people are mothers or fathers or uncles, or everybody is allowed to be on their journey of self-discovery and figuring out their new normative. Absolutely. Still does not give you permission to mistreat me in that process.
Oof. That needs to be on a t-shirt.
If we got to take a hiatus, if that's the season of our friendship, we're on a hiatus, that it doesn't have to be forever, unless it does have to be forever. And then I wish you all the best.
That's real. That's real grown. Very, very grown. Because I know that emotions and just heightened sensitivities when you are trying to navigate unfamiliar terrain can cause some static and some beef, and we too old to be being cruel and boxing and being messy and all these other things. So I'm glad you did explain it in that manner, because that does shed a lot of light on just growth and seasons, and knowing that there are boundaries that need to be in place for all of that, regardless of what you're going through. But you can't put no barbed wire on your boundary. Like, it shouldn't be something that's going to cut and hurt and make somebody else bleed while they trying to figure out how to get to you.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate that, Lauren.
I'm here for you, girl. I won't even charge you for this.
For $3.99.
Right? The free.
Yes, girl.
So since we are kind of talking about that, and I know we speak about just different seasons a lot on the podcast, and we still want to shed light on like the motherhood and the aunties and all of this. So how should we, I guess, respond when people do approach us like that man did? Like, what an invitation. Like what a big, like how should we, what's a good way of, I guess, responding versus saying fuck you?
I mean, I'm like, where is the petty in your heart? Because at some part, it's like, when I know, you'll know.
Yeah.
Or sometimes
Right.
you can hear people like, I'm good. Or
I also feel like, just not to cut you off, is that
you're
with this situation, it's to me, it's still like you teach people how to treat you because it's none of your
absolutely.
business. So you saying it, you can either be petty or you can just say it in a way that they know it's none of your business. And I find that I have to do this often with older people, i.e., my
Mm-hmm.
grandma, because they've been so conditioned because it was done to them and it was done to their mothers and it was done to their mothers that they're so conditioned, it's ingrained in them to say these things to people, not even realizing how it makes someone feel. And one of the things that I have been doing is calling shit out as soon as it happens.
Mm.
And I just feel like it just, because you put everything on the table right at that moment. Because,
Yeah.
I'm not giving you a chance to think. Whatever you think in this moment right now, say it and say it with your chest. And I've done that to my grandma several times. I speak, or Fallon knows, but one of my little cousins has HIV. And before she
Mm-hmm.
went public with it, my grandma had made a comment and I called my grandma out and I was like, so are you telling me that if someone in your family that you love had HIV, you would stop loving them, you wouldn't hug them, you wouldn't drink behind them? Is that what you're saying? And she really had to stand there and answer the question.
Yeah.
And of course, she didn't know what it was at the moment. But, when my cousin did go public with it, she came back to me and she said, that's why you did me like that day. But I just believe in, if you call it out right then, you teach people how to treat you right then. Cut the bullshit right here.
Do you think that's plausible with elders though? Because I feel like I've been doing a lot of reparenting and trying to restructure conversations and mind frames with people that are older. They really were damaged growing up. Like they don't even know the amount of damage or like struggle and strife that was kind of like forced upon them. Like how do we even talk to them and make them understand, because it's a generational gap, like for real, for real. You think we got generational gap between the millennials and the Gen X's, baby boomers? It was, baby, they spirits. I don't
But
know.
you were on the phone with me when I was doing it with my grandma, remember?
I know, and she was
One
like, I
time.
don't know what she was. I don't know what trauma is.
We didn't
Like,
know, and then I had to keep breaking it down, and I think it's just an ongoing conversation because sometimes, not everyone, but sometimes we don't allow ourselves to think outside of the box that's been handed to us. You get what I'm saying? So when she was like, well, what is trauma? Okay, well, you probably didn't have a definition for trauma back in the days, but okay, this is what trauma is, and this is what trauma could look like. Does any of that resonate with you? Have you ever experienced that? That's why I kept, asking questions. And I don't think I went into the conversation with you after you got off the call. But then the trauma that she told me about, she realized that was trauma.
yeah, they don't even be knowing.
I think that's the thing. Like some people just really don't know because again, like one thing we addressed earlier, societal norms, right?
Yep.
This has been your norm for so long. It's your foundation. But here comes me with another pop culture reference. I look at it like an episode of like House Hunters or Flip This House. It's your foundation, right? That was the upbringing. This is what you know. We can't go back and change that. But we can knock this house down that you built up on this foundation down to the studs and start over. Mm-hmm. We can keep the slab. We can build a new house. And so when you know better, you do better. So even though your grandmother sounds like she was kind of set in her ways, it seems like because of the relationship and rapport that you all had, she started to listen to you and began to think about things in a way that she hadn't done before. And so that's just something that's new because now we're opening up and we're creating space to say, you know what, I don't want to continue to carry this trauma into my next lifetime or into my next generation. So what can I do to address it? And so for those of us who are on the auntie side and you're not necessarily thinking about not passing on generational trauma to the kids, we at least can have those conversations with the elders in our families and in our communities to make you be like, let's talk about this a little further and let's have a teachable moment here. And so I think it's beautiful when you can have those conversations with them and they are receptive and you're learning things about them and you're able to teach them some things to help them learn whatever, increase their emotional intelligence, to learn some tolerance, to be like, oh, okay, I know that's what you said then, but we don't use those words anymore today. That's offensive.
Right.
So I think that's the beauty in it, just having those teachable moments with people. And then sometimes too, it's not your elders, because some of our peers, some of my high school classmates, I'm looking at the stuff that they post and I'd be like, oh Jesus.
Wow. Right. That's exactly how it is. And I know one saying that my grandma always says, and people say it all the time, but when you know better, you do better. So, now that you know how you spoke to me, now that you know that you crossed my boundary, you won't do it again because I've had the conversation with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. I think that's the same for my mama too. Like trying to reparent and reteach how to give a compliment or how to receive a compliment. Like I don't know if they grew up just, if you were doing what's right, that's what you're supposed to be doing. Nothing was praised or like nothing was
nothing. You are so right.
So now I guess we are looking for a little affirmation. They don't know how to do it because shoot, Big Mama and them didn't have time to pat all 10 kids on the shoulder and tell them to die back in the day. So now when we're dealing with our parents and people who may have grown up, like the people that raised our grandparents, like they really do not know how to accept a compliment, how to give a compliment, how to know that some stuff is worthy of praise. Like that's a big one around these parts.
But I feel like, again, I go right back to slavery because guess what? You can't tell your son, man, you lifted up a bunch of hay back there because then he's going to be sold off. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. But I think it's too like that evolution of survival. So 1852, I couldn't compliment you and how many bales of cotton you pulled that day. But I'm like, this isn't where we are now. And this isn't where we are as a society. So like one thing that we talk about time and time again is people who aren't able to effectively communicate, right? I don't know how you feel. I'm not a mind reader. And, now we're finding out that things are triggers for people and they don't have that language to be able to say, when you did X, it made me feel Y.
Yeah.
All you know is how to shut down or remove yourself or to lash out against somebody because you feel threatened. So now I got to threaten you so we can just all be like Della Reese says, some fighting motherfuckers in here.
Yeah. Right. That's real. Very real.
And I think what you just said, Lauren, that's the language that you need for your situation, Fallon.
Yeah, I agree. Exactly.
Because I think sometimes, a lot of times people act out of emotion, and that's not giving giving anyone a pass or anything like that. But when you say it in those terms, it's just like, this was triggering for me. And I think you said it, but maybe they need to hear it again. This was triggering for me. And you never know if that person is like, well, this was triggering for me because of this situation. And then boom, you guys have hashed out whatever issue there may have been. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's real. That is real. A lot of stuff can be solved with the conversation, but a lot of stuff also is looking into yourself and recognizing why you feel a certain way or what caused you to pop off or change your stance on something. And no, communication is key. And that's
I mean, you can treat that like your family tree. That why can stretch back so far. Why do you feel like this? Well, how did that make you feel? Well, why did you react like that? Well, why didn't you say that? Like the whys can really help you to begin to start to unpack some things. And then you're able to articulate to someone else, this is how we ended up here. It's just a lot. I think some of the stuff is just a lot of miscommunication and a lot of missed opportunity, but also in recognition, vulnerability is very hard and scary for a lot of people. Because now I need to know, if I'm bringing my vulnerability to you, how are you going to receive it? Are you going to laugh at me? Are you going to brush it off? Are you going to make fun of me? And so that you create, again, this narrative in your mind about how you're going to be received. And again, perception is reality. And then that can lead you on this very slippery slope of beginning to shut down and not address how you're feeling. But Kristen is bringing up a lot of great points in loving yourself. And when you show people how to love, how you like to be loved, you're leading by example.
Yeah. So is telling people that you don't have the bandwidth to deal with something that triggers you, is that appropriate in this climate, or do you think the conversation is worth having before just immediately saying, no, I don't have the bandwidth for that?
I have admitting that you don't have the bandwidth is a boundary.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you going to go with that, right? So if you already know that about yourself, I think that's beautiful of what you have the capacity to deal with. In the same token, you need to be ready to answer yourself like, I can't keep running away from this situation. So it does need to be addressed. But do I need to address it right now at 10:42 and I'm due in court in front of the judge at 11? Maybe not. Like, let's circle back to this. But I don't think it's anything wrong with saying, I just don't. Like, for instance, one thing I had to implement in my practice is I'm having a bad day. And so before I could just be like, Fallon, girl, let me tell you what happened. And this client didn't show up and this happened. And then I caught a flat tire. First, I'm like, do you have the time and capacity to talk with me because I'm having a bad day?
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I have to teach myself, and I'm teaching this to my clients, like a no isn't a no to you. It's a no to the request.
Exactly. But you know what, Lauren, one thing that I've been finding myself doing recently is just getting a little bit more honest and more mature within my friendships in regards to, hey, this is how I felt. Like I said, I just got back from vacation, and there was a situation stemming from my vacation trip, which the vacation was kind of like a surprise. So I really didn't know where I was going. And so I was like, well, somebody got to know where I'm going. So I'm like, tell this one person that we have in common where I'm going to go. And then, of course, my family wants to know, because when you say you're going on a surprise and it's not like down the street in the country, people start getting worried, especially when they don't know the person. And I felt like how my friend handled it was like wrong. So I just knew that, because I know me, I'm either going to be quiet or I'm going to do too much. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, I got to say something, because I just can't be in nobody's face and being, fake. So we basically talked about the situation, but I think we agreed to disagree on how it was handled. But at the same time, we both came to an understanding that, this is what mature friendship looks like. Speaking about things that make you feel a way and expressing our feelings, and you being able to say, you know what, I didn't think about it in that manner. And on that particular day, I didn't have the bandwidth to deal with it, which, going forward, tell me that. You could just say you don't have the bandwidth, because going forward, I wouldn't put you in that position to be the person to relay some information to my family that I think is extremely necessary. You know what I mean? But we still came to that understanding. And I thought that was just a mature way to handle it, because I know other situations, like I've spoken multiple times about that wedding that I was kicked out of, that definitely was not handled in a mature way. Even years later, and me saying something to this person like, hey, how are you? And this person still looking at me like I'm glass, like I'm not cute. And I was, but it just wasn't handled in the correct manner. So
yeah,
that emotional intelligence, girl, it escapes a lot of people. And when you don't have that capacity, it's hard, right? That's why I'm like, you can always give yourself permission to remove yourself from those situations. But I'm glad that you and that friend were at least able to come to a consensus to agree to disagree. That's beautiful. An agreement was still made, and you know how you guys want to handle situations like that moving forward. I think that's great.
So I think that I'll say you better than me if you are not knowing when to hold them and when to fold them in regards to what we just talked about. Because what I got from that was some situations require a little bit more conversation. And
absolutely.
If is not receptive to what you have to say, then you're not required to make them understand you. You're only required to advocate for yourself, your own feelings, your own personal self-care in the situation. But as long as you have done your best, you don't gotta address it right then. You can fold it until later, come back to it if it's worth it, or hit it with a know when to hold them and know when to fold them, and just kind of wash your hands of the situations. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm a Scorpio. I'll be real quick to want to just be like, this is it.
But no, I hit you with this is when we implement the DJ Jubilee plan. Sometimes you got to stop and pause.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's it. You got to stop and you got to pause and then come back to it, because, hurt people hurt people. So if you need a moment to step back so you can articulate yourself better and not end up calling somebody mama a bald-headed hoe in the midst of the situation, so be it. But things do not have to be addressed in the moment in order for effective communication to happen. Now, in the same breath, that don't mean come back and tell me something that I did when I had a perm, and I'm like, girl, now I don't remember this. So take some liberties with that, but it doesn't have to happen the same day, the same hour to address the situation in order for it to be effectively resolved. Hit them with the Jubilee.
Okay, I receive that. Kristen, you have a you better than me. I feel like you've been in your psychology bag too, because so I've very much so appreciated this conversation, being able to listen to you both impart wisdom on me, because the attorney in me is not. Sometimes I see life a little too black and white and have to peel back some layers for myself. So I have appreciated listening to both of you all and your perspectives. But you got a you better than me moment. Do you have one?
Do I have a you better than me moment? Let's see. I don't know if I have one, but here's the thing. You better than me if you don't take a look at your village and put them in place to assist you with things that you may need assistance with. And I'm saying that because, Lauren, I appreciate you coming on here today. You said a lot of things. I piggyback off some of the things that you were speaking about. And I think one thing that we forget about is collaboration. And I think tonight was true collaboration. And I think that, we all were able to find something in this conversation. And I hope that our listeners were as well. This whole season, we've been speaking about affirming yourselves and just, being a better person and just trying to work through some things. And I feel like you came on here and you actually reiterated that with us. And I think a lot of people don't reach out to the people that are in their circle or in their tribe for things like this. And I'm happy that Falcon did this today. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I was like, oh, Lord, what am I? I don't have anything to say, but I'm glad I had my Andre 3000 moment, because the South got something to say. So thank you so much for having me and letting me impart the wisdom of my grandmother. That's a lot of where I pulled this from, because she was so sage and wise for a woman who only went to 3rd grade. And the things that she gave us definitely resonate with me today. So I'm glad that I could share that foundation from my mother and my grandmother to y'all. Thank you.
I love it. Now, Lauren,
what was sorry.
Oh no, don't.
What was your grandmother's name?
Ada B.
Shout out Miss Ada B.
Yes, Ada B. Yes.
I was gonna say, Lauren, can you tell the people where they can find you, where you're licensed at, where they can see what you got going on and all these great things? Plug your business, child.
Oh, thank you. Shout out. So you better than me if you don't realize that you need therapy, girl. Let's get rid of this generational trauma. A great thing, a close friend of mine told me a long time ago, she said, give yourself permission to take off that cape and hang it up. So you do not have to be the strong one all the time. So I am here. I am licensed in the state of Texas. So regardless of where you are, holla at your girl. You can find me on Psychology Today. It's just Lauren Parrish, LPC. And all of my information is there. And I also see clients on BetterHelp and Talkspace as well.
Yes. I appreciate you so much. And just being able to humanize you and let the people know that somebody with all this knowledge is not have to be scary. Therapy ain't got to be scary. It's real people that are truly passionate about helping. So I'm glad that if anybody may have had any apprehensions about a therapist, and then a black woman therapist, like, God dang.
I'm black. I'm from the South. What you want from me? Louisiana bred, Texas fed. I'm in here.
Yeah, I love it. So I truly appreciate this conversation and just everything. I'm in my feels. I'm happy that we had this conversation, and yeah, I'm looking forward to us finishing off this season with a bang. I feel like this was necessary, and yeah, keep rocking with your girls.
Thank you, ladies.
Yes, thank you guys for listening today, and be sure to check us out for the next episode of You Better Than Me, the podcast. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
You Better Than Me is a podcast on Pyro Media Network, produced by Pyro Media Productions. Pyro Media Network and Pyro Media Productions are subsidiaries of Pyro Media Enterprises. For more information, please visit www.pyromedianetwork.com. Thank you for listening, and we will see you on the next.